My son was barely breathing when I found him in the ditch. My fiance's father did this, he whispered through the pain. He said my place was in the ditch, not at the table with them. I was boiling with rage. At home, I made a call to my brother. Remember what our father taught us? It's time to put it into practice. The police arrived in 2 hours, but that was only the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The coffee maker gurgled its familiar morning song while I stood at the kitchen window, watching sunlight creep across the neighbors' lawns. August in Portland meant fog that burned away by 9, leaving everything sharp and bright. I measured the grounds with the precision of routine, 3 scoops, no more, and listened to the house settle around me. Retirement had given me mornings like this, slow, predictable, mine. The newspaper waited on the table where the delivery kid always left it, folded with the local section on top. I carried my mug over and sat, scanning headlines about budget debates and road construction. My eyes caught a name in the business section. Jordan and Associates had won another city contract. Something about the waterfront development. Eugene Jordan's firm seemed to land every major project lately. The article praised his company's efficiency and connections. I turned the page. The name meant nothing to me then. My phone buzzed around 10:30. Edwin's face filled the screen. That photo from his birthday last year, grinning with cake frosting on his nose like he was still 7 instead of 28. Hey Dad, just wanted to hear your voice. His tone carried something underneath the casual greeting. Strain, maybe. Excitement wrapped around nervousness. Everything all right, son? I set down my mug, attention sharpening. Yeah. Tonight I'm doing something important. Something I should have done months ago. Traffic noise filtered through the connection, voices in the background. He was somewhere public, probably pacing. What is it? I kept my voice level, the way I used to with witnesses who needed coaxing. You sound wound up. Just nervous. Good nervous, you know. He laughed, but it came out tight. I'll explain tomorrow. Promise, I really will. Edwin, Dad, I gotta go. Love you. Talk tomorrow. The line went dead before I could press further. I stared at the phone in my hand. 28 years old meant he was entitled to his privacy, his own decisions, his own life. But I'd spent 3 decades as a federal prosecutor reading people, and that call sat wrong. The excitement was real, but so was the fear underneath it. The afternoon crawled past. I tried reading, tried watching the news, tried ignoring the nagging sensation that something wasn't right. Around 6, I called Edwin. Straight to voicemail. Edwin, it's Dad. Give me a call when you get this. 7 o'clock, another call, another voicemail. Son, starting to worry. Just text me you're okay. By 9, I'd left 3 messages and sent 4 texts. Nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail now, that automated voice saying the customer wasn't available. I paced my living room, wearing a path between the couch and the window. My prosecutor's mind supplied possibilities. Phone died, went somewhere with no signal, got busy and forgot to check. All reasonable, all insufficient to quiet the growing knot in my chest. Edwin, please, just one word, anything. I held the phone, staring at his contact photo, willing it to ring. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I'd raised him alone after his mother passed, and even though he'd moved out 5 years ago, some part of me still listened for his footsteps, his voice, his presence. The phone buzzed at 10:30. Unknown number. I almost didn't open it. Your son is near Riverside Drive. Hurry. My hand stopped moving. I read it again. Then again. Someone was watching Edwin. Someone saw something happen. Someone knew to contact me instead of emergency services, which meant, what? That this wasn't random. That whoever sent this wanted me to find him, specifically me, before anyone else did. I grabbed my keys off the counter. My hands shook as I locked the front door, fumbled the key in the deadbolt, finally got it turned. The car started on the second try. I backed out too fast, corrected, forced myself to breathe. Riverside Drive meant the industrial area near the Willamette, where the city gave way to warehouses and empty lots. 20 minutes from my house, less if I pushed it. I pushed it. The streets emptied as I left the suburbs behind. Streetlights grew sparse. The river appeared on my left, dark water reflecting fragments of moonlight. My headlights cut through shadows, illuminating pavement, guardrails, nothing. Where are you, son? I slowed near the drainage ditches, scanning every dark shape, every shadow that might be something more. My heart hammered against my ribs. The prosecutor in me noted details: deserted road, no witnesses, perfect place to hide something you didn't want found. The father in me just repeated one thought: please be okay, please be okay, please be okay. My headlights swept across something dark near the shoulder. Not a trash bag, not debris, a shape, human-sized. I stopped the car, left the engine running, the door open. Gravel crunched under my shoes as I approached. Cold night air bit at my face. My breath came out in visible puffs. The shape was a person, face down, one arm twisted beneath the body. No. The word came out small, childlike. No, no, no. I knelt in mud and gravel, reached out with shaking hands, turned the body gently, carefully, the way you handle something broken that might shatter further. Edwin's face stared up at me, swollen and bloody. His right eye was nearly swollen shut, the tissue around it already turning purple-black. Blood had dried in a line from his split lip down to his collar. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, felt the pulse, steady, strong enough. Thank everything, still alive. Edwin, son, can you hear me? It's Dad. I'm here. His good eye fluttered, focused, tried to find me in the darkness. Dad, the word came out thick, slurred. Hurts. Everything hurts. I know. Don't move yet. Let me check. My hands moved on autopsy, doing what I had watched paramedics do at crime scenes. Felt his ribs, tender, possibly cracked, but his breathing stayed even. Checked his pupils, both reactive despite the swelling. Ran fingers along his spine, his arms, his legs. Nothing obviously broken, but someone had worked him over thoroughly. These weren't random blows. This was methodical. Just breathe, slow and steady. I kept my voice calm, that courtroom voice that never wavered even when juries delivered verdicts that made me want to scream. Can you tell me what happened? Edwin's hand found my jacket, gripped it with surprising strength. His mouth worked, forming words that came out in painful fragments. Eugene Jordan, Delphine's father. I went to meet them, thought he'd... The name hit me like cold water. Jordan, the developer from the newspaper, the man with connections and contracts and power. He did this? He attacked you? Said I'm nothing. Edwin's voice broke. Said, my place is in a ditch, not with his daughter. His fingers dug into my sleeve. Not at their table, not in their world. I saw it then, piecing together what I hadn't known. Edwin had been seeing someone, this Delphine, Jordan's daughter. He'd gone to meet her family tonight, that important thing he'd been nervous about. And her father had beaten him for it, left him in the mud like garbage. Don't call police. Edwin pulled at my jacket, terror flooding his swollen face. Please. He said, he'll ruin me. Has lawyers, connections, judges. Said, if I report this, he'll make sure I lose everything. He beat you and threatened you. I kept my voice level, but something cold was spreading through my chest. He's powerful, Dad. You don't understand. Eugene Jordan owns half the city. He'll destroy me. He promised. Edwin's good eye filled with tears. I shouldn't have gone. Shouldn't have thought. Stop. I cupped his face gently, careful of the bruises. Not your fault. Never your fault. But I understood perfectly. I'd prosecuted men like Eugene Jordan, men who believed their money and influence put them above consequences, men who hurt people and walked away because the system protected them better than it protected their victims. I'd won some of those cases, lost others. Watched the powerful slide through gaps in justice while ordinary people paid the price. Not this time. Can you stand? I helped Edwin sit up, moving slowly, supporting his weight. He gasped with each movement, clutching his ribs. We're going home. I'll handle this. How? Edwin leaned against me, barely able to walk. He'll crush us. We handle it, my way. I got him to the car, settled him in the passenger seat. He slumped against the window, eyes closing. The drive home took 15 minutes. Edwin's breathing filled the silence, ragged, pained, but steady. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The cold thing in my chest kept spreading, crystallizing into something hard and purposeful. At home, I helped Edwin inside, eased him onto the couch. He groaned with each shift in position. I grabbed ice from the freezer, wrapped it in kitchen towels, brought bandages and antiseptic from the bathroom medicine cabinet. My hands worked with practiced efficiency, cleaning wounds, pressing ice to swelling, securing bandages. But they shook slightly. Not from fear, from rage held so tightly it made my fingers tremble. "I'm sorry, Dad." Edwin's words came out muzzy, exhausted. So stupid. Should have listened when she said her father wouldn't approve. "Rest now." I covered him with a blanket, watched his face slowly relax as pain medication and exhaustion pulled him under. Within minutes, he was asleep. I sat in the chair across from the couch, watching my son breathe. His face was a map of violence, bruises forming, cuts beginning to scab, swelling distorting his features. Eugene Jordan had done this, had beaten a young man for the crime of caring about his daughter, had threatened him into silence, had left him in a ditch like trash. The system wouldn't touch Jordan. Men like him bought their way out of consequences. They had lawyers and judges in their pockets. They made problems disappear. But I wasn't the system anymore. I picked up my phone, scrolled through contacts until I found the name I needed. Louis, my older brother. We hadn't spoken in 4 months, not since our last argument about whether I was wasting my retirement. I pressed call, 1 ring, 2 rings. Elwood? Bit late for a social call. Louis's voice carried that familiar edge of skepticism. "Louis, remember what Dad taught us about systems and justice?" I kept my voice steady, the dangerous calm I used to use before tearing apart a witness. Silence on the line. Then Louis's tone shifted, dropping into something darker. "What happened? Time to apply those lessons? How fast can you get to Portland?" Headlights swept across my front window just before 2 in the morning. I opened the door before Louis could knock. We didn't embrace. Just a brief nod, that understanding that passes between brothers who've seen enough of life to skip the pleasantries when things are serious. Louis was 65, but moved like someone 10 years younger, still carrying that alert posture from his FBI days. His eyes went straight to the living room, where Edwin slept under a blanket, then back to me. "How bad?" he asked. 3 cracked ribs, maybe 4. Facial contusions. Threatened if he reports it. The man who did this? Eugene Jordan, runs a construction company. Louis paused mid-step. "Jordan and Associates?" Something in his tone made my prosecutor instincts sharpen. "You know him?" "Know of him. Come on." He gestured toward the kitchen. We sat at my kitchen table with coffee. Neither of us drank. The mugs became something to hold while I laid out everything. Edwin's nervous phone call yesterday morning, the anonymous text, finding him broken in that ditch, Eugene Jordan's name spilling from his swollen lips, the threats about lawyers and judges and consequences. Louis listened without interrupting. His expression hardened with each detail, but his hand stayed steady on his mug. When I finished, he pulled out a small notebook from his jacket pocket, old habit from his bureau days. His company won federal affordable housing contracts last year, Louis said, jotting down notes. Multiple awards, minimal competition. Colleague of mine thought it smelled off. In my prosecuting days, clean winners were often the dirtiest players. I watched him write, just better at hiding it. Question is, what's he hiding? And how do we prove it? A sound from the living room, Edwin groaning, shifting. We both moved to him. His right eye had swollen completely shut now, the bruising spreading down his cheek in shades of purple and black. "Uncle Louis." Edwin's voice came out rough, surprised. "Didn't expect family reunion like this." Louis crouched beside the couch. "Tell me what happened. Everything." Edwin struggled to sit up. I helped him, careful of his ribs. He took a shaky breath. "Met Delphine at a conference, 8 months together. She said her father was difficult, traditional, but she wanted to try. His good eye found mine. She thought if he just met me, talked to me." "He hit you when you walked in?" I kept my voice even. After 5 minutes, he looked at my car in the driveway, asked what I did for work. When I said project manager at a tech company, he laughed, said I was nobody, said people like me don't marry into families like his. Edwin's hand went to his ribs. Then his fist made his point clearer. Louis's expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten. "He threatened you after beating you?" "Said he has judges, lawyers, connections throughout Portland. Said if I report this, he'll make sure I never work in this city again. He'll bury me in lawsuits. Edwin's voice cracked. He'll do nothing, I said, cutting in. My voice came out cold, certain. Because we're going to find out what he's really been doing. Edwin stared at me. Dad, you can't. Sleep, I told him. Let us worry about the rest. Within minutes, exhaustion pulled him back under. Louis and I returned to the kitchen. He walked to the window, looked out at the dark street, spoke with his back to me. If Jordan got federal money and misused it, that's fraud. That's my former colleague's jurisdiction. Evidence, I said. We need evidence. I'll make calls, carefully. See what raised flags during his contract awards. He turned to face me. This won't be quick. Dad always said, the law is patient. It doesn't need to hurry. It just needs to be thorough. Louis's expression softened slightly. Our father had been a civil rights attorney in the 60s, fought cases that took years to win. He'd taught us that the system could be a weapon if you understood how to wield it, not street justice, not revenge, systematic, legal, complete destruction of those who thought themselves untouchable. Then we'll be thorough, Louis said. Dawn was still hours away, but we were already working. Louis returned to his phone, voice low as he reconnected with contacts he hadn't spoken to in months. I opened my laptop, started pulling up public records, building permits, contractor licenses, federal contract announcements. Eugene Jordan had beaten my son and threatened him into silence. He thought his money and connections made him safe. He was wrong. Dawn brought a few hours of restless sleep, more collapse than rest. By mid-morning, the house had transformed into an improvised operations center. Louis occupied the guest room, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and careful. I sat at my computer, multiple browser tabs open, county records, state licensing databases, federal contract awards. Edwin limped into the kitchen around 10, wincing with each step. He poured coffee slowly, favoring his injured ribs. You should be resting, I said, without looking away from the screen. Can't. Not while you two. He eased into a chair at the dining table. What can I do? Tell me everything Delphine said about her father's business. Anything that seemed odd or made her uncomfortable. While Edwin thought, I pulled up Jordan & Associates' project history. Impressive on the surface. 30 developments in 5 years, mostly affordable housing with federal subsidies. The company's growth trajectory was meteoric, too smooth, too fast. Louis emerged from the guest room, notebook in hand. Got something? We gathered at the dining table. Louis flipped through his notes. Spoke with a former colleague at Financial Crimes. Off the record, old friend catching up. He glanced at me. Jordan & Associates was flagged 18 months ago during a routine HUD audit. Suspicious patterns, inflated cost estimates, subcontractors that were difficult to verify, materials procurement that didn't match reported expenses. Why didn't they pursue it? I asked. Investigation stalled, no direct evidence, and Jordan's lawyers blocked deeper inquiry. Case got deprioritized for bigger targets. I turned back to my computer, pulled up specific projects. Look at this. Killingsworth Street development. Jordan claimed $4 million in construction costs. I opened another tab. Comparable buildings in the same neighborhood, half that. Louis leaned over my shoulder. Where'd the difference go? Offshore accounts, shell companies, personal enrichment, same patterns I prosecuted 20 times. I printed the documents, spread them across the table. Everything technically legal on the surface, but the gaps are enormous. Knowing and proving are different problems, Louis said quietly. Edwin cleared his throat from his chair. Delphine told me something, a few weeks ago. We both turned to him. Her father's accountant was upset. Guy named Howard. She overheard them arguing. Howard said he was tired of making numbers dance for Eugene. Said he wasn't paid enough to risk his license. Louis was already at the computer, fingers flying across keys. Howard Reynolds, CFO of Jordan & Associates, 43 years old, licensed CPA. I felt that familiar sensation from my prosecution days, the moment when scattered pieces begin forming a picture. Accountants keep records, even of things they shouldn't be doing. Especially of things they shouldn't be doing, Louis corrected. That's how they protect themselves. If Howard's uncomfortable with the fraud, he's a potential witness. I looked at my brother. Maybe even has documentation. Going to him is risky. He could warn Eugene. Louis shook his head. Or he could be waiting for someone to give him an exit. People don't stay in criminal enterprises because they love crime. They stay because they're scared to leave. Fear, I said. That's what Eugene uses. That's what we use against him. We spent the next hour mapping out the approach. Lewis would make contact. His former FBI credentials still carried weight, and he knew how to flip reluctant witnesses. We needed internal documents, genuine contracts, actual invoices, payment records, proof of offshore accounts, anything showing intent to defraud. If you approach Howard, what do you offer him? I asked. Truth, protection, a chance to be on the right side before everything collapses. Louis closed his notebook. And if he refuses, then we build the case without him. Takes longer, but we still build it. Edwin's voice came quiet from across the table. How long? I met his eyes, saw the bruises darkening his face, remembered finding him in that ditch. As long as it takes, justice doesn't have a deadline. Louis checked his watch. Howard leaves his office at 6. I'll catch him in the parking garage. I nodded. This was the critical juncture. If Howard cooperated, we'd have our case. If he refused or warned Eugene, we'd face immediate countermeasures. Either way, we were committed now. The afternoon crawled past. I continued analyzing documents, building a timeline of Jordan's projects, noting discrepancies and patterns. Edwin dozed on the couch. Lewis reviewed his approach strategy, rehearsing conversations in the guest room. At 5:30, Louis grabbed his jacket. Wish me luck. You don't need luck, I said. You need him to be as tired of lying as we think he is. The door closed behind him. I returned to my computer, but my focus had scattered. Everything depended on the next few hours, on whether Howard Reynolds was ready to stop being complicit in Eugene Jordan's fraud, on whether we could turn Eugene's own weapon, the system he thought protected him, into the instrument of his destruction. Louis found Howard Reynolds through professional databases and social media within an hour. The man lived in a modest neighborhood in Gresham, not the kind of wealth you'd expect from a CFO of a supposedly thriving construction company. Underpaid employees made better informants. Lewis had learned that in his first year at the Bureau. He chose a coffee shop 3 blocks from Jordan and Associates' office building. Evening crowd provided cover. Young professionals with laptops, students with textbooks, the ambient noise of a city winding down. Lewis sat near the window with an untouched Americano, watching the building entrance across the street. Howard emerged just after 6. Middle-aged, carrying a worn briefcase, walking with the slumped shoulders of someone bearing weight beyond physical. Louis timed his approach carefully, catching him on the sidewalk before he reached the parking garage. Mr. Reynolds? Louis kept his voice neutral, showing the FBI identification still in his wallet. I'm Louis Cole, former FBI. I need 5 minutes of your time. Howard's face went pale. He backed up a step. I haven't done anything. I know. That's why I'm talking to you instead of arresting you. Coffee? What is this about? Eugene Jordan, and the choice you're about to make. Inside the coffee shop, Howard sat rigidly across from him, hands wrapped around a cup he didn't drink. His eyes darted toward the door, toward his phone, anywhere but Lewis's face. I can't discuss confidential company business. I have obligations. The words came out rehearsed, defensive. Lewis leaned forward slightly. Your obligation is to the law. Jordan and Associates received federal subsidies for affordable housing. $4.2 million for the Killingsworth project alone. Public record, nothing wrong with, except the actual construction cost half that. Where'd the rest go, Mr. Reynolds? Howard's eyes dropped. His hands tightened on the cup. Louis kept his voice steady, almost gentle. You've seen the buildings, cheap materials, minimum standards, maximum profit. Families living in those units think their rent is subsidized by federal programs designed to help them. It is subsidized. Howard's voice came out quiet, defeated. And the subsidy money Eugene pocketed, that was supposed to build them something better, something safe. You know this. Howard rubbed his face with both hands. You don't understand. He'll destroy me, my family. Eugene has connections, judges, attorneys, people who owe him. He said if I ever talked, he'd make sure I went to prison while he walked free. He doesn't have the FBI. Louis let that sit for a moment. Or federal prosecutors who hate fraud. The protection I can offer is real. His threats are only as strong as his freedom. Something shifted in Howard's expression, the wall cracking. How do you sleep at night? Louis asked quietly. Knowing federal money meant for families in need is lining Eugene Jordan's pockets? Howard's breath came out shaky. I don't sleep. Haven't in 3 years. Then help us build the case, and you're a witness, not a defendant. The silence stretched. People laughed at nearby tables. Espresso machine hissed. Howard stared into his coffee like it held answers. I've kept records, he finally said. For 3 years. Every fake invoice, every shell company, every offshore transfer. I knew someday. He looked up, meeting Lewis's eyes for the first time. I knew this would collapse. I just wanted proof I tried to stop it. Lewis nodded slowly. Someday is now. Howard reached into his briefcase with trembling hands, drew out a flash drive, slid it across the table. Everything's here. 5 years of fraud. Correspondence showing he knew exactly what he was doing. Dual accounting systems, shell companies in Delaware and Nevada, offshore accounts in the Caymans, real material costs versus reported costs. His voice gained strength as he spoke. Everything you need to destroy him. Louis picked up the drive carefully, treating it like the weapon it was. You're doing the right thing. Am I? Howard's laugh came out bitter. Or am I just choosing which threat scares me more? You're choosing the side that lets you look at yourself in the mirror. Not everyone gets that chance. Howard stood abruptly. I need to go. My wife expects me home. He paused at the table's edge. When this breaks, when Eugene finds out, he'll know it was me. We'll protect you. That's not empty promise. Nothing's empty with Eugene Jordan. Everything has weight. Everything has cost. Howard walked toward the door, then stopped, looked back. Tell whoever hired you. Tell them I'm sorry their son got hurt. That wasn't supposed to happen. Then he was gone, disappearing into the evening crowd. Louis sat for another minute, feeling the drive's weight in his pocket. Outside the window, the sky darkened toward full night. He pulled out his phone, already dialing Elwood's number as he headed for his car. Behind him, Howard Reynolds sat alone in his vehicle, staring at the steering wheel, wondering if he'd just saved himself or destroyed everything. Louis spread the files across my dining table like evidence at trial. We'd connected the flash drive to my laptop. Years of documents materialized on screen. My prosecutor's eye recognized immediately what we had. Look at this. Louis pointed to a spreadsheet. Invoice to Pacific Northwest Materials, LLC for $2 million in concrete. I searched the company registry. Doesn't exist. And this email. Louis scrolled down. Eugene to someone named Victor in the Caymans. Transfer the surplus as discussed. Keep documentation minimal. Edwin stood in the doorway, watching us work. His face still showed the bruising, but his eyes carried something new. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of belief that his father and uncle might actually pull this off. I clicked through folder after folder. Dual accounting systems. One set for auditors showing legitimate expenses, another showing reality. Contracts with shell companies in Delaware and Nevada. Invoices for materials never purchased. Wire transfer confirmations to offshore accounts, email chains discussing creative solutions and flexible interpretations of federal subsidy requirements. This isn't just fraud, Louis said quietly. It's systematic, years-long criminal enterprise. It's beautiful, in a sick way. I leaned back in my chair. Every prosecutor's dream case, multiple counts, documented intent, clear pattern of deception. How long to put together a formal complaint? Louis asked. 2 days, maybe 3. We need to organize it properly, cross-reference everything, build the narrative timeline. I was already making mental lists. Then we file with the Bureau's Financial Crimes Unit and the U.S. Attorney's Office. My phone rang. Unknown number. I glanced at Louis, who went still, answered on speaker. Mr. Cole, Elwood Cole, correct? Father of Edwin? The voice carried controlled rage barely contained beneath professional courtesy. Who is this? Eugene Jordan. We need to discuss boundaries. Your son had an unfortunate accident. You beat him and left him in a ditch. I kept my voice level. That's quite an accusation. My attorneys would advise against repeating it. In fact, my attorneys are very good. They could keep you tangled in lawsuits for years. His confidence built with each word. I have friends throughout Portland. Judges, councilmen, business leaders, one phone call, and your son's employment prospects vanish. I calmly opened my phone's recording app with my free hand. Old prosecutor habit. always preserve evidence. Interesting, I said. If you or anyone connected to you continues investigating my company. Investigating? That's a specific word, Mr. Jordan. Silence. Then Eugene recovered. I know someone approached my accountant today, someone named Cole. Your brother, perhaps? Former FBI? Louis's eyebrows rose. Howard had talked, or been seen. Either way, Eugene knew. You seem concerned about an innocent conversation, I replied. I'm warning you, back off, or you'll regret it. I can make your life miserable. I can make sure Edwin never works in this city again. I can bury you both in legal fees until... I wonder what your attorneys will say when they're defending you against federal fraud charges, multiple counts, years of prison time. The silence stretched longer this time. When Eugene spoke again, his voice wavered slightly. You're bluffing, old man. You have nothing. We'll see. I hung up. Louis was already smiling that grim smile I remembered from when we were kids, and someone picked a fight they couldn't win. He knows we talked to Howard, Louis said, and he's panicking, threatening federal witnesses, obstruction of justice, consciousness of guilt. I played back the recording. Eugene's voice filled the room, making threats, connecting himself to Edwin's accident, revealing knowledge of our investigation. He just connected himself to Edwin's beating, Louis observed. Unfortunate accident. That's practically a confession. Edwin limped closer, listening to the recording. Does this mean we have him? I looked at my son's battered face, then at the flash drive on the table, then at the recording app still running on my phone. Scared men make mistakes. He's making them already. I saved the recording, backed it up to cloud storage. He panicked and gave us more ammunition. Now he knows we're investigating, which means he'll either destroy evidence or make more mistakes trying to stop us. We need to move fast, Louis said. Tomorrow we file with the FBI, before he destroys evidence or runs. Agreed. I pulled the laptop closer, already opening a new document. I'll start drafting the formal complaint tonight. We organize everything, build the timeline, cross-reference the evidence with federal statutes. Edwin cleared his throat. What do I do? Rest, heal, let us handle this. I met his eyes. Eugene Jordan hurt you because he thought you were powerless. He's about to learn what happens when you hurt someone who isn't alone. Louis stood, stretched. I'll make coffee. Going to be a long night. The flash drive sat on the table between us, small object containing the power to destroy Eugene Jordan's life, the way he'd tried to destroy my son's. Outside, Portland settled into darkness. Inside, we worked through midnight and beyond, building the case that would bring a powerful man to his knees. Not with violence, not with revenge. With the system he thought protected him, turned into the weapon that would end him. I woke before dawn, already at my computer. The house still held nights quiet, but my mind had been working through the complaint structure for hours. Louis found me in the home office around 7, 2 coffee mugs in hand. How long you been up? He asked. Long enough to outline the sections. I accepted the coffee. Statement of facts, legal violations, supporting evidence, recommended charges. We worked in tandem, the way we used to help each other with homework 40 years ago. I typed, he reviewed. Every claim backed by a document reference. Every allegation cross-referenced with federal statute. This was muscle memory, 30 years as a prosecutor flowing through my fingers. Between January 2023 and August 2025, I read aloud, Eugene Jordan systematically defrauded the Department of Housing and Urban Development through falsified construction costs. Add willfully and knowingly, Louis said. Shows intent. Good. And here, we need to quantify total fraud. I pulled up Howard's spreadsheets. Records show approximately $6 million diverted over 3 years. Multiple counts. That's serious time. Louis leaned back. We should attach the recording of his threatening call. Shows consciousness of guilt. Witness intimidation. Exhibit J. I created the reference. And his email to the Cayman account manager. That's Exhibit K. The complaint grew page by page. Section 1. Fraudulent procurement of federal affordable housing subsidies under HUD programs. Section 2. Creation of shell companies to inflate costs and divert funds. Section 3. Money laundering through offshore accounts. Section 4. Tax evasion on diverted income. Edwin appeared in the doorway around 9, watching us work. His face still carried the bruising yellowing now around the edges. You're really doing this? He he said quietly. Making it official. I looked up from the screen. We're not making anything. We're documenting what he did. The crimes are his. We're just showing them to people who can act. By mid-morning, we had 40 pages of documented federal crimes. Louis pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, found the name he wanted. Marcus Webb, Financial Crimes Unit. He's sharp, specializes in construction fraud. Louis dialed, put it on speaker. Marcus, Louis Cole, I'm sending you something. Construction fraud, HUD money, offshore accounts. Package is complete. Evidence, analysis, witness cooperation. Webb's voice came through gruff, professional. How solid? Retired prosecutor built the case. Former FBI gathered the evidence. Solid as concrete. Send it. I'll prioritize review. Coming through now. Louis typed on his phone. You'll want to move fast. Subject knows he's exposed. At 10 in the morning, Louis submitted the complaint electronically through the FBI's portal. The confirmation screen appeared. Filing timestamp, 10:03 a.m., official record, no going back. We sat at the kitchen table afterward. The house felt different, charged with anticipation. Federal bureaucracy moves slowly, I said. We might not see action for weeks. Maybe. Louis checked his phone. But Webb's sharp. If he sees what we see, what do we do now? Edwin asked. We wait, we trust the system we've fed, and we prepare for Eugene's next move. He'll panic more, Louis said. Make more mistakes. We've seen it before. 2 hours passed. Louis's phone buzzed at noon. He read the text, then looked at me. Marcus says he's reviewed it. Meeting with the assistant U.S. attorney now. Probable cause clear. Moving forward today. I leaned back, exhaled slowly. Warrant application incoming? How long until they execute? Louis asked. Hours, not days. They'll move before Eugene can sanitize or run. Edwin's voice came out barely above a whisper. This is really happening. He's going to pay for what he did. I met my son's eyes. The law will hold him accountable. That's all we asked for. Outside, Portland moved through its ordinary afternoon. Inside, we'd set something in motion that couldn't be stopped. The machinery of federal justice, once engaged, moves with crushing inevitability. Eugene Jordan's freedom could now be measured in hours. Edwin's phone buzzed around 2 in the afternoon. He stared at the screen, then looked up at us. Delphine, he said. First time since... He showed us the message. My father is losing it. Says someone's coming after him. Screaming at my mother, calling lawyers nonstop, pacing like a trapped animal. What's happening? Louis and I exchanged glances. Eugene felt the pressure, but didn't know its source yet. Just instinct, the sense that his world was crumbling. He knows something's coming, Louis said, just doesn't know what. Should I respond to her? Edwin asked. Not yet, I said. After today, she'll understand everything. My phone rang 15 minutes later. Eugene Jordan. I answered, put it on speaker. His voice shook, barely controlled panic, replacing yesterday's arrogance. What did you do? Howard won't answer his phone. Someone accessed our file servers. What documents do you have? I kept my voice level, almost gentle. I have nothing, Mr. Jordan. I'm a retired prosecutor enjoying quiet life. Liar! You sent your FBI brother after my accountant. You stole confidential files. I didn't steal anything, but I imagine federal investigators will be very interested in those files. Federal? His voice cracked. You're bluffing. You can't. I'll destroy you. I'll sue you for everything. I walked to the window, watched a neighbor trimming hedges across the street. Ordinary afternoon. Ordinary neighborhood. Extraordinary justice unfolding. Sue me? Your lawyers will be occupied defending you against fraud charges, money laundering, tax evasion. Multiple federal counts. You have no proof, no evidence, nothing that would... I have exactly what's needed. You built your wealth on stolen subsidies meant for families who needed homes. You beat my son and threatened him into silence. You believed your money made you untouchable. I'll make deals. I know people. I can... You dug the hole yourself, Mr. Jordan. I'm just making sure justice finds you in it. Goodbye. I hung up. Louis was smiling that grim smile. He's completely unraveled, Louis said. Fear does that? I sat down. Takes away all the polish, leaves just the scared criminal underneath. Louis's phone buzzed. He read the text, then read it aloud. Warrant approved. Team assembled. Executing raid at Jordan residence and office at 4 p.m. Subject will be detained for questioning. Possible arrest, pending interview. The room fell silent. Edwin's eyes widened. Today, this afternoon, federal agents don't delay when they have solid evidence and flight risk. Louis checked the time. 2:15, less than 2 hours. Eugene has money, offshore accounts, no ties keeping him here, I said. He could disappear tonight. They know that, Louis replied. That's why they're moving now. We sat in the living room, watching the clock. Strange feeling, anticlimactic, yet charged. 2 days of investigation and planning, all converging on this afternoon. What happens during a raid? Edwin asked. Louis leaned forward. Agents arrive, announce themselves, secure the premises, begin search. They'll detain Eugene, question him, likely arrest him on sight. Just like that? After everything he did? Justice doesn't always move fast, I said. But when it does, it's decisive. The minutes crawled. Edwin paced. Louis monitored his phone. I remained still, but my eyes tracked the clock. At 3:50, Louis's phone buzzed again. Teams in position, he read. Going in 15 minutes. My hand briefly touched Edwin's shoulder. Reassurance, connection, acknowledgement that justice for my son was minutes away. Your grandfather taught us, I said quietly, the system works if you work the system. Today, we see if he was right. Edwin sat on the couch's edge. I keep thinking about Delphine. She doesn't know. She's going to watch federal agents arrest her father. She'll need time to process, I said. But she's not responsible for his crimes. Neither are you responsible for setting this in motion. He did this himself. 3:55. Louis stood, walked to the window. Military bearing, alert posture. They're executing now, he said. Somewhere across Portland, federal agents were approaching Eugene Jordan's mansion. The man who'd beaten my son, who'd threatened us, who'd stolen millions from families who needed homes. He was about to discover that money and connections couldn't save him from consequences. The clock on my wall showed 3:58. Edwin held his breath. Outside, afternoon sun angled through windows, throwing long shadows across the floor. Inside, we waited in silence, watching justice arrive for a man who'd thought himself above it. At exactly 4 o'clock, Louis's phone pinged. The sound cut through the silence like a blade. He read the text message, his expression unchanging, then looked up at us with the slightest nod. Entry made, both locations secure, subject detained. The three of us exhaled simultaneously, a shared release of tension we'd been holding for hours. Simultaneously, I said, my prosecutor's mind automatically analyzing the tactical decision. Smart move. Prevents evidence destruction or warning calls between locations. No time for Eugene to sanitize one site while agents hit the other. Edwin leaned forward, hands gripping his knees. They're really there? At his house right now? FBI doesn't execute warrants casually, Louis replied, already typing a response to Webb. They've been planning this since we submitted the complaint, assembling teams, coordinating with Portland police for backup, preparing evidence collection protocols. They're there, and they're methodical. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at my quiet suburban street. Everything appeared normal, Mrs. Chin watering her garden, the Morrison kid riding his bike, late afternoon sun casting long shadows. But across Portland, Eugene Jordan's carefully constructed world was collapsing. He's learning right now, I said quietly, that money doesn't stop federal agents, that connections don't invalidate warrants, that threats are meaningless when the law arrives with documentation and authority. Louis's phone buzzed again. He scanned the message. Webb says the search at the office is yielding exactly what Howard documented. Computers being imaged, file cabinets emptied, employees being separated for preliminary interviews. Professional operation. Edwin's phone rang 20 minutes later, the vibration loud against the coffee table. He looked at the screen, then at me, uncertainty crossing his face. Delphine, he said, voice tight. I nodded once. Permission granted, though I suspected this conversation would be painful. He answered, stepped out onto the front porch for privacy. Through the window, I watched him pace in tight circles, one hand pressed to his forehead, the other holding the phone to his ear. His shoulders tensed, then sagged. The conversation lasted 5 minutes that felt like 20. When he came back inside, his face was set hard, jaw clenched, eyes distant. She's hysterical, he said, sitting down heavily on the couch. Crying so hard she could barely speak. FBI agents are everywhere, in their house, taking her father's computers, boxing up files from his home office, photographing everything. Her mother is screaming at the agents, threatening lawsuits, demanding to call their attorney. Delphine says the house is chaos. "What did she ask you?" Louis said. If I knew anything about this, if this was connected to what happened between me and her father, Edwin's voice steadied, finding strength. I told her the truth, that her father beat me and left me in a ditch to die, that he threatened to destroy me if I reported it, that he's been stealing millions from federal programs meant to help families build homes. How did she respond? She asked if I did this, if I called the FBI on her father. Edwin met my eyes. I said he did it to himself, that he built his empire on fraud and violence, that we just made sure the right people knew what he'd been doing. I turned on the television, flipped to local news. Within 30 minutes, they were covering it. Helicopter footage of FBI vehicles outside Jordan's mansion in the West Hills. Reporters standing outside the downtown office building. Speculation about the nature of the investigation. FBI and HUD investigators raided the home and offices of prominent developer Eugene Jordan this afternoon in connection with alleged federal fraud, the reporter announced, trying to maintain professional neutrality while clearly excited by the story. Sources tell us this is related to federal affordable housing contracts awarded to Jordan and Associates over the past 5 years. No statement yet from federal officials or Mr. Jordan's attorneys. We'll continue to follow this developing story. It's on the news, Edwin said quietly, staring at the screen. Everyone will know. The whole city. That's how it should be, I replied, arms crossed, watching the coverage with prosecutors' detachment. Transparency, public accountability. When powerful people commit crimes, the public has a right to know. Louis added, his reputation is finished regardless of trial outcome. The association alone is damning in his circles. A reputation built on fraud deserves to crumble, I said. Over the next 2 hours, information trickled in through various channels, each update adding another piece to the picture of Eugene's downfall. Louis received periodic texts from Webb, Eugene becoming increasingly agitated during questioning, demanding his attorney, refusing to answer questions. His composed businessman, facade cracking under federal pressure. Elmira Jordan creating a scene at the mansion, threatening agents with lawsuits, insisting they were violating her rights, making empty threats that the agents professionally ignored. Edwin's phone lit up with fragmented texts from Delphine, confusion, anger, fear, accusations that we'd destroyed her family, then silence. The messages stopped coming around 6 o'clock. As sunset approached, painting my living room in shades of amber and gold, Louis's phone pinged one final time. He read the message slowly, then looked up with grim satisfaction. Subject arrested, he read aloud. Charges officially filed with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Eugene Jordan charged with federal fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. Bail hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9. Webb says it's a strong case, strongest he's seen in years. Eugene Jordan, who beat my son and left him broken in a ditch, who threatened us into silence, who believed his wealth and connections made him untouchable, who thought he could intimidate a federal prosecutor and an FBI agent into submission, was now in federal custody, fingerprinted, photographed, processed into the system like any common criminal. I felt satisfaction settle into my chest, but not joy. This wasn't celebration. This was simply the system working as designed, as it should always work. The machinery of justice, properly engaged, grinding forward with inevitable momentum. Is it over? Edwin asked, voice small, still processing the speed of events. I shook my head slowly. It's beginning. Arrest is just the first step. Now comes arraignment, bail arguments, discovery, motions, negotiations. Months of legal maneuvering. Eventually, trial or plea agreement. Then sentencing, appeals if he's foolish enough. Justice is a process, not a moment. It takes time, but it's thorough. Louis and I moved to the back porch as darkness fell, drawn by habit to the quiet space. Edwin joined us after a few minutes, leaning against the railing, looking up at stars appearing in the deepening sky. The night air carried the scent of cut grass and late summer flowers. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, normal sounds of a normal evening, but nothing felt normal anymore. Dad would be proud, Louis said quietly, breaking the silence. We used exactly what he taught us. The law is the strongest weapon when you know how to wield it. Not revenge, not violence, not stooping to their level. Just systematic, legal, complete destruction through proper channels. I nodded slowly, thinking of our father, dead 15 years now, but his lessons still guiding us. He'd taught us that revenge is chaos, emotional, unpredictable, often backfiring. But justice is precision, calculated, methodical, permanent. We'd chosen precision. Eugene would face trial, conviction, prison. Not because of personal vendetta, but because federal law demands accountability for those who steal and hurt others. The system worked, just like Dad said it would, if you understood how to use it. What happens tomorrow? Edwin asked. Bail hearing at 9. Federal magistrate will hear arguments. Prosecutors will argue Eugene is flight risk. Offshore accounts, no strong community ties, facing serious time. His attorneys will argue he's respected businessman, longtime Portland resident, no prior record. Will they let him out? Edwin's voice carried worry. Probably if he can make bail, but it'll be high, $500,000, maybe more. And conditions will be strict. Surrender passport, GPS monitoring, regular check-ins, no contact with witnesses. He'll be free in body, but caged in reality. Lua added, evidence this strong, his lawyers will recommend plea deal. Going to trial would be suicide. Webb says prosecutors are already preparing the offer. Inside, the television continued showing news coverage. Eugene Jordan's fall playing out in headlines and speculation. Out here on the porch, Portland's night settled around us, cool and quiet, indifferent to the drama of human justice. I put a hand on Edwin's shoulder, felt the solid warmth of my son alive and healing beside me. You're safe now. That's what matters most. Eugene can't hurt you anymore, can't threaten you, can't touch you. The law has him, and the law doesn't let go. That evening, after the initial adrenaline faded and exhaustion set in, Louis received the official word from Marcus Webb about the bail hearing results. Eugene Jordan had been released on $500,000 bail, a staggering sum he'd managed to post by liquidating accessible assets through his attorney, draining accounts that weren't yet frozen by federal order. But freedom came with chains. Conditions, I explained to Edwin, reading through the court documents Louis had forwarded to my email. Surrender passport immediately, already done at the hearing. GPS monitoring bracelet attached to his ankle, tracked 24/7 by federal marshals. Weekly check-ins at the federal courthouse. No contact whatsoever with witnesses, including Howard Reynolds, which means he can't even go near his own company. Restricted travel. Can't leave Oregon without court permission. Essentially house arrest with slightly longer leash. So he's technically free but caged, Edwin said, understanding dawning. Every movement tracked, his business frozen pending asset seizure proceedings, bank accounts under federal scrutiny, his attorneys bleeding him dry at $500 an hour. I closed the laptop. He can fight the charges if he wants, but he's already lost everything that mattered to him. Reputation, business, power, freedom of movement, respect. The trial is just formality now. The real punishment has already begun. Over the following 48 hours, I watched the news reports track Jordan and Associates' spectacular implosion with the detached interest of someone observing a chemical reaction in a laboratory. Inevitable, predictable, complete. Partners issued statements distancing themselves from Eugene, claiming ignorance of financial irregularities, hiring their own attorneys. Major contracts were canceled within hours. The City of Portland, the State Housing Authority, private developers, all severing ties, citing morality clauses and fraud allegations. Investors who'd poured money into Jordan's projects filed lawsuits seeking to recover funds. Employees started updating resumes and reaching out to competitors, rats fleeing a sinking ship. Jordan and Associates filed for bankruptcy protection this morning, Edwin read from his phone on the second day, scrolling through news alerts. Chapter 11. Partners are being investigated too. The whole company's collapsing. Fraud this extensive rarely involves only one person, I observed, sipping coffee at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. Federal prosecutors will work their way through the entire organization, like archaeologists excavating a crime scene. Every executive, every accountant, every manager who signed suspicious documents. They'll flip whoever they can, build cases against whoever they can't. Lewis, who'd extended his stay an extra day to see the immediate aftermath, got regular updates from Webb. Howard's testimony is implicating two other executives, CFO and VP of Development. Both received target letters yesterday. Webb says they're already negotiating immunity deals in exchange for cooperation. Justice multiplying, I said with satisfaction. Each guilty party facing consequences. Exactly how the system should work. Not just the man at the top, but everyone who enabled him, profited from him, looked the other way while he stole. On the third day after the arrest, Edwin borrowed my car for the afternoon. He was meeting Delphine, neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, public but private enough for difficult conversation. I didn't press for details, just handed him the keys and told him to take his time. He returned 3 hours later, parked in the driveway, but sat in the car for another 10 minutes before coming inside. When he finally entered, he walked straight to the kitchen table and sat down, staring at nothing, processing. I waited. Sometimes silence is the best question. She knew, he finally said, voice flat. Not the details, not the extent, but she knew something was fundamentally wrong. She heard arguments between her father and Howard about creative accounting and flexible interpretations. She saw invoices that didn't match what she knew about construction costs. She studied architecture in college, understands building expenses. She noticed her father's sudden wealth, the offshore account statements that appeared in his study, the hushed phone calls with people in the Caymans. What did you tell her? That I needed time, that I couldn't just forget he nearly killed me, that the bruises on my face came from her father's fists, that she knew something was wrong but chose not to ask questions because asking meant admitting her father was a criminal. Edwin looked at me, eyes clear but sad. She apologized, said she should have protected me from him, should have warned me what kind of man he really was. She said she wasn't asking for forgiveness, just acknowledgement that she was sorry. That's honest at least, more than many people manage. Honest but not enough, not yet. Maybe someday I'll be able to separate her from what he did. Maybe someday we can rebuild something, but not now. The wounds are too fresh. Every time I'd look at her, I'd see him. I understood completely. Some wounds heal cleanly. Others leave permanent scars that ache when the weather changes. Edwin was learning which kind he'd received. 4 days after the raid, Louis and I sat on the back porch in the late afternoon, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. He was leaving the next morning, returning to his life in Seattle, his brief return to investigative work complete. This was elegant revenge, he said, sipping bourbon, a rare indulgence for both of us. Systematic, legal, permanent. Eugene's destroyed more thoroughly than we could have managed with fists or weapons. His money's gone, reputation ruined, freedom stolen, legacy erased. And we didn't break a single law doing it. I corrected him gently as I had before. Not revenge, Louis, justice. There's a crucial difference. Revenge would have been beating him like he beat Edwin, leaving him in a ditch, making him feel the same terror and pain. That's satisfying emotionally, but empty legally. It would have made us criminals too. Dad's lesson, Louis said, understanding. The law is the strongest weapon if you know how to wield it. We didn't break it, we used it. Eugene broke it, and it broke him back harder than he could have imagined. I watched the sun touch the horizon. He'll spend years in federal prison, his legacy destroyed, his wealth confiscated and distributed as restitution to the families he stole from. And we did it by simply showing the truth to people whose job is enforcing consequences. Louis smiled, that familiar expression from childhood, when we'd solved a difficult puzzle together. Proud of you, brother. 30 years as a prosecutor, you haven't lost your edge, still sharp as ever. Neither have you. This only worked because we both remembered what Dad taught us. You gathered evidence like you were still at the Bureau. I built the case like I was still in the U.S. Attorney's Office. We made a good team. Still do, apparently. We sat in comfortable silence as darkness gathered, two brothers who'd executed a complex operation successfully, now returning to our separate lives with the satisfaction of a job well done. Early September brought the message I'd been waiting for. Email notification from the assistant U.S. attorney assigned to the case. Subject line, USA vs. Jordan, plea agreement. I opened it at my desk, reading carefully. Mr. Cole. Wanted to inform you that Defendant Eugene Jordan has accepted a plea agreement after consultation with his attorneys. He will plead guilty to all charges: federal fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and witness intimidation. In exchange for his cooperation in identifying other participants in the scheme and providing testimony against co-defendants, the recommended sentence is 20 years in federal prison. Sentencing hearing scheduled for October 15th. Restitution amount being calculated, estimated at $6.2 million to be distributed to affected housing programs. Thank you for your crucial cooperation in this investigation. Your documentation and witness coordination were instrumental in achieving this outcome. I read it twice, then a third time, letting the words sink in. 20 years. Eugene Jordan would be 75 years old when released, if he survived federal prison at all. Men his age rarely did well in that environment. The stress, the violence, the complete loss of control and comfort. His wealth couldn't help him there. His connections were useless behind those walls. He'd be just another inmate, another number, another broken man who'd believed himself above consequences. Edwin appeared in the doorway of my home office, drawn by some instinct. His face had healed completely now. Bruises faded to nothing, swelling gone, cuts reduced to faint scars that would eventually disappear. Only the memory remained, and even that was losing its sharp edges. "Is it really over?" he asked, the same question he'd been asking for days. I looked at my son, alive, safe, healing, standing in my doorway asking about justice. "Yes, the legal system has him now. Our part is done. You're safe, and that's what mattered from the beginning." 20 years, Edwin said quietly, having read over my shoulder. "That's basically the rest of his life. That's the consequence of his choices. Every action has a reaction. Every crime has a price. He chose to build wealth on fraud, to hurt you when you challenged his control, to threaten us when we sought accountability. These are the natural consequences of those choices, delivered by a system designed specifically for this purpose." Edwin sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair he'd sat in as a child when I'd help him with homework. "Did we do the right thing? Sometimes I wonder if we went too far, if we were too harsh, if—" "Stop," I interrupted gently. "We didn't go too far. We went exactly as far as the evidence demanded. We ensured that someone who hurt you, who hurt countless families by stealing money meant to house them, faced appropriate consequences under law. That's what justice looks like. Not personal, not emotional, not revenge-driven, just thorough, factual, and inevitable. But 20 years is what federal sentencing guidelines recommend for the crimes he committed. The judge could have given him more. The maximum is 30 years for the charges combined. The prosecutors showed mercy by offering a deal. We showed mercy by building a case instead of handling this some other way." I held his gaze. "Eugene Jordan made choices. Now he lives with consequences. That's not cruelty. That's how civilization works." Edwin nodded slowly, accepting what he already knew, but needed to hear confirmed. We sat together as afternoon light filled my office, father and son processing the end of a journey that had started with a terrifying phone call and a body in a ditch. That evening, we sat on the back porch again, our gathering place throughout this ordeal. Edwin asked the question that had been building: "What do I do now? How do I move forward from this?" I considered carefully before answering. "You heal. You return to your life, your work, your routines. You decide whether Delphine gets another chance or whether that chapter is closed. You remember that you survived something terrible and came out stronger. You understand that you have a father and uncle who will move mountains to protect you. And eventually, you forgive yourself for whatever guilt you're carrying about setting all this in motion." "I'm not sure I'm carrying guilt," Edwin said. "You are. I can see it. You think you destroyed Delphine's family, cost people their jobs when the company collapsed, hurt people who weren't directly responsible for your beating. That's the weight of collateral damage, and it's real. But it's not your fault. Eugene created that situation. You were just the catalyst that exposed it." We watched evening deepen over Portland, the city lights beginning to glow, traffic sounds drifting up from the main road, the ordinary symphony of urban life continuing regardless of our small drama. Somewhere in federal detention, Eugene Jordan was adjusting to his new reality. Concrete walls, metal bars, loss of autonomy, the crushing weight of time stretching ahead. He was learning that money couldn't buy comfort there, that connections couldn't ease the boredom and fear, that his previous life was gone forever. I felt no triumph in that image, just satisfaction that the system had worked, that justice had been served, that my son was safe. "Thank you, Dad," Edwin said quietly, "for not letting him win, for knowing what to do when I didn't, for being smarter than he was." "I wasn't smarter," I replied. "I just had more experience using the law as it was designed to be used." Eugene thought wealth gave him immunity. That's a common mistake among people who have never faced real consequences. They forget that the law exists precisely to handle people like them. Powerful individuals who believe rules don't apply. The law doesn't care about money or status. It only cares about evidence and truth. And we gave it both. The stars emerged overhead, the same stars that had watched me find Edwin broken in that ditch, the same stars that had witnessed our planning, our investigation, our systematic dismantling of Eugene Jordan's life. But everything was different now. My son was safe. Justice had been delivered. The system my father taught me to trust had proven worthy of that trust once again. Not revenge, justice. In the quiet of that evening, with Edwin beside me and peace settling into my bones, I finally understood the full weight of that difference. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.